So today we're going to go over a few sections of the Capital Funds Grant Agreement, and we will try to cover this material as efficiently as possible so that we can leave room for questions, like Lauren said. But so today, the training session, it's not intended to be an extensive review of the CPF grant agreement, but what we will do is review several sections that we feel or that may be unique or worth noting due to the fact that this is federally funded. We do recommend that you familiarize yourself with the entire agreement. And with that, we'll go ahead and get into the content here. The grant agreement template was open for public comment during the grant application cycle. And thanks to a lot of folks providing comments, we did form in this template that you're accessing today. The template, we use the grant template agreement across all grantees so that we ensure consistency and that the terms and conditions, they're non-discriminatory against any of our grantees. And during the review process, only the grantee information and project details will be allowed to be updated in the grant agreement. So in the main body of the agreement, there's two basic sections, the main body and then the statement of work. I will be covering the main body, and then I'll hand it over to Ali to cover information around the statement of work. So what you'll notice on the first cover page is where you're going to find your grant number, or in other words, called the core encumbrance number. With that number, you need to make sure that you recognize that number, and it's on all communications to and from the CBO when you're discussing or concerns raised on this grant. That is how we're going to identify, and we keep track of that. Let's see. So before we go on, I want to kind of clarify something here in the section right after the signature page. You'll see a federal award box. This is required by federal guidance that we include this in every grant agreement. And this is basically information for you to be able to access the funding mechanism of where this grant funds are coming from. And you definitely want to refer to this if you have questions on the overall federal grant program. And I do want to note that you're going to see a grant amount down there. That's not your grant amount. That's the total grant amount from the federal government to the state of Colorado. That does trip some of us up sometimes. So for the period of performance, when the funding is available, the grant, once your grant is signed by all parties, and once the controller of the state has signed the grant agreement, that is your effective grant execution date. It will be noted in the grant agreement when you get it back, when you receive a copy. And one note is the grant agreement will state that the funds are available through December 31st, 2026. But we do have a requirement in the grant agreement that the construction be completed within 24 months of the execution date. And we would recommend highly that you complete the work and submit any invoices by November 15th of 2026, which allows the state time to reimburse you and close out the grant. What's different about the period of performance and construction? Well, once we have a start, the grant will start on that execution date, like we mentioned before, but the actual performance of construction does not start until we've given a written notice to proceed. And there are several items that have to be completed before that written notice to proceed will be provided. Once the funding ends and the construction is done within the 24 months, then we will be able to, in a position to close out the grant agreement and finish up any remaining paperwork or compliance reporting. There's one note on this is roles and responsibilities. we definitely want to make it clear what these roles and responsibilities are for the designated individuals. Um, the different parts of the grant process, you will have required authorized signatures from different folks. And we're going to identify those three main um, roles here in the next slide. So, like I said, there's three roles. There's the project director. This person is responsible for knowing what's happening with the project at all times, and they would sign any compliance progress reports. So any progress, and most likely would be in contact with the CBO staff pretty regularly. The second role is the financial officer. This person is going to be within the grant agency and is responsible for all financial matters related to the project, accounting, management of funds, verification of expenditures, audit information, and financial grant reports. This person will also sign all financial reports. And I failed to mention on the project director, that is required and must be an employee of the staff within the applicant agency. That cannot be an outside agent. And, and then finally, we have the signature authority. This person is responsible for signing the contractual document, which we're calling an agreement, and any amendments to that agreement if we have to execute any amendments. And the signature authority is also in a position to sign for either the financial officer or the project director in case they are absent. And an example of a signature authority would be CEO, city manager, county commissioner, or board of directors, any of those types of roles. And if you need additional information, the certifying grant documentation training video is available that extensively goes through these roles and responsibilities. So a couple definitions that we want to make sure that are real clear. Subcontractor versus subrecipient. The subrecipient is the same as the grantee. They are most likely used kind of interchangeably, but just know that when we say grantee or we say subrecipient, that it was the same person or same group. You can always find or ask questions if you don't understand fully, but subcontractor is a third party that is engaged with the grantee to aid in the performance of the project. That could be either construction, project management, assistance, admin work, things like that. But just remember that subrecipient is the grantee is the subrecipient, and then subcontractor is a third party. So on the insurance, we just wanted to point out that there are a couple of items, certificate of insurance that we need, and that the state shall be named as additional insured on that certificate of insurance. And for detailed information in terms of the coverage requirements or additional language that we are expecting on the certification of insurance, you can go to section 10 of the grant agreement. Just note also that if there's any changes in insurance coverage or renewals, please notify us. We have to be notified so that we keep track and keep it up to date in our systems as well. And then a few other items to note that we feel are probably not familiar because this is unique. It's a federal grant going through the state, is that we will be employing digital signatures. This is subject to CORA, the Colorado Open Records Act. And if you have something that's confidential, please, this is an important part. Put confidential in the name of the file and put confidential in the file itself where it applies. And only confidential information that's marked. Please don't mark the whole document as confidential. And I will be remiss if I don't mention that even though we mark it confidential, there are some exceptions to the CORA Act that still will, that could, let me rephrase that, that could still require that information to be released. So please make yourself aware of the CORA requirements, and please make sure you note the name of the name of the file with confidential and the sections within the file that are confidential. And then lastly, permitting. We are expecting the grantees to secure all permitting, and we expect those permits to be submitted to the state prior to proceed with construction, notice to proceed with construction. And with that, I'll pause, let Ali take over the screen, and I think we'll ask for a few questions if you have any.
There's one in the chat from David. What will be the approval delay with the state for permits after the local county has issued them?
Repeat that question again. Well, okay, what will be
in the chat there too, if you want to read it?
Yeah, what will be the approval?
And David, you're welcome to ask it out loud too. You don't have to use chat if you don't want to, but
okay. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
So just trying to understand, if we got a permit, on a Monday from the county, do we email it off to you and we can start that day, or do we need to give you guys like a week for each segment we're doing?
Okay, I got you. Once we have the permit, then we have not worked with this program yet, so I don't know how long the actual approvals take, but I would expect 24 hours or so. David?
Okay, so every time we get a permit for a different segment of work from whichever municipality or CDOT, we need to send that to you guys and wait for somebody to write back and say, okay, now this work can proceed?
Yes, we would give you a notice to proceed after receipt of that, and once the date of that notice proceed, you're good to go after that.
Okay, so every single permit?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you get a group of permits that cover several sections, we can take those all at once if you need to, because the way we're going to, when you look at the program or project documentation, we break it up into phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And there are several sections within those phases. We can work parallel if you need.
Okay, some of the counties you work in have like a year permit, and some of them are like 30 days. So
yeah,
the ones that'll let us, we'll just try to apply for them all at once.
Yes, I hear you, David. We hear that from quite a few different entities that it's not consistent. Imagine that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I assume you guys don't have any problems on, like, I know some counties don't like you to work on the weekends, or they want certain notice. You guys don't really care when the work is performed as long as it's within the rules of the counties.
Yes, exactly. We do not overstep our bounds and tell counties and municipalities how to do their business, and you would follow their rules in terms of those.
Fantastic. Appreciate the info.
Yep. Thank you, David.
Other questions? Okay, then I think Ali, you can.
Yep. I'm going to hand it over to my cohort and better half of me, Ali.
Thank you, Michael. You guys can see my screen? Just making sure.
Yeah, we can. It's a statement of work, so I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's, yep, great.
Okay, so at this section, we're going to talk more about the body of the grant agreement, the statement of work, and what is the statement of work, and the description of the work. So the statement of work is pretty much the umbrella that is going to house the project plan, the description work, and the design, and so on. Grantees must, within 2 years of signing the contract, create and build a functioning, commercially serviceable broadband network within the service area that meets all the completion standards. So you got 24 months, as Michael stated before, to complete the project from the date that the grant is signed. The statement of work is going to include a work description, a project plan, and design and engineering plan. The work description is going to be a summary of the project. It'll include the location information, the technology used, infrastructure deployment method, aerial or underground, and so on. The project plan is going to be more detailed. And anything in the work description must reference what's in the project plan. The project plan is due within 10 days of the grant agreement execution. Therefore, I highly suggest that you start working on your project plans now if you haven't already started. Please include your phases, your timelines, your milestones, methods of deployment. And these project plans will be updated quarterly. There will be quarterly progress updates to these project plans. Your design and engineering plan also needs to be included in the grant agreement. As in your application, you included a high-level design. So this is the good time, if you don't have any challenges or any modifications to your project, to start working on your engineering and get into the low-level design in order to prepare for it to submit it for permitting. Anything that is going to change throughout the project, specifically to the statement of work, is going to need prior approval from your OIT grant manager. There are different types of changes. Anything that regardless of the type of change, it has to be in writing and it has to be approved by the grant manager. Next step, we'll talk about the type of changes and what they entail. For example, anything that's going to change the project scope or statement of work is going to require a grant amendment. Location changes are also going to require a grant amendment. Budget changes, and we're not talking about the overall budget of the grant. We're talking about changes within the categories within the budget. Those are modifications and need to be also approved by the OIT grant manager and documented via by email as well. Project contacts that you most of you have already provided us. If any of those contacts are going to change or change throughout the life cycle of the project, we need to be notified of that as well. Eligible costs. Cost must be reasonable, allowable and allocable cost for the project. Costs that appear to be excessive and without any justification risk the fact of not being reimbursed. So all costs are subject to written approval by the grantees. Therefore, please do not make any changes or start any work without prior approval from your OIT grant manager. Payments to grantee. All payments are going to be paid in accordance with Exhibit A of the grant agreement. Payments are going to be for actual costs allowed by the federal award and approved within the project budget. Any costs that are not approved will risk the not being reimbursed. So therefore, please be really transparent and upfront with any changes or any costs that you are going to incur prior to incurring those costs. Payment does not constitute acceptance of work. If you submit for reimbursement and you have received payment for that cost, that does not mean that the work has been accepted. The quality of work has not been certified. The work itself will be accepted throughout a different process, which is the reporting, inspection, and project closeouts and what have you. So please don't consider that if you submitted for a cost for work and you receive payment that the state has accepted that work. OIT will process payment requests in the order that they have been received. So it's kind of first come, first serve on those submittals. Also, please note any mistakes on the payment requests invoices will that need to be corrected will start the process and therefore start the clock, restart the clock. So if please make sure that there's no accounting errors or any mistakes on your submittals prior to submitting them, so you don't have those delays. Grantees should expect to be able to float costs for a minimum of 45 days after the final corrected submission of the payment request. Payments to grantee, and here we're gonna specifically speak about matching funds. Matching funds must be utilized if they have been committed to the project. If you're in an application, you have committed a certain amount, a certain percentage of matching funds, these funds have to be committed and spent on the project. Matching funds cannot be appropriated or allocated to any other projects. Matching funds are considered program funds and part of the budget, and failure to provide matching funds will reduce the grant award in total. Payments and reimbursement of costs. Reimbursements are for actual costs only. Conditional lien waivers must be submitted with every request for reimbursement. Closeouts must take place within 45 days of project end date. Here I would mention that if you have a certain phase that is completed, you can submit a closeout for that phase, but that does not, that cannot be excluded from the entire project closeout at the end of the project. Expenditure end date, as Michael stated before, is December 31st, 2026. So it is highly recommended that you have all your invoices and all your expenditures and money spent and submitted probably no later than November 15th is a good time. This will give us 45 days for reimbursement. Grantees will be held to project timelines in the agreement. Reporting. As any project goes on and throughout the life cycle of the project, you are required to report on your progress and your spending. Quarterly progress and financial reports are due 15 days following each quarter. The annual reporting is due on June 30th every year. So mark your calendars on that one. Litigation reporting is due within 10 days of being served or notified of such litigation, meaning if you cause damage while you're working on the project and are being sued or being held accountable for anything, please notify us and be transparent with your OIT grant managers. Performance and final status report and your closeouts are due within 45 days of the end of the initial term. You must disclose to the state and the federal awarding agency any violations involving fraud, bribery, gratuity violations, or any unethical practices from anybody working on the project. You also must disclose to the state if you are in default in any other state or federal agreements. So if you've been awarded more than one project or more than one grant, and you're defaulting on one, even if it's not the one we're speaking about today, CPF, you must make the state aware of that default. And if you are involved in any network outage, or you yourself have caused the network outage during construction, also please notify us of such outages. Here we're going to talk about record retention. You must keep and maintain and make available to the state any records related to the project for monitoring for a period of 5 years following the submission of the final quarterly and annual report. So please do not consider the state or any state software system as your document storage. If you submitted the document to the state or uploaded it into our system, great, but that does not relieve you from the responsibility of storing that document and making it available upon request. The state will monitor the performance of the grant financially. and construction progress throughout the life cycle of the project. Uniform guidance and state risk analysis will determine the type of monitoring. Monitoring, this is where keeping them honest comes in. Monitoring is how the state verifies programmatic and financial progress reported by the grantee. Grantees should expect to be monitored at any time, and in different shapes or forms of monitoring that the state will be conducting. The state has the right to recapture funds from a grantee if grant funds have been used for non-allowable expenses. Federal awarding agency has the right to recapture funds following closeout on the basis of an audit or other reviews. Funds can be recaptured at any time, including after the closeout. Grantees must keep documentation related to the project to show costs are allowable. So just to stress the importance of keeping good records at all time, especially the financial records and expenditures. Types of monitoring. So we have 3 types of monitoring: limited scope monitoring, comprehensive monitoring, and monitoring processes. Limited scope monitoring, evaluating and addressing specific concerns and issues to review specific portions of a project. Comprehensive monitoring is an in-depth program, financial and administrative review designed to sample elements of many or most aspects of the project. So it's kind of like a thorough audit of the project. Remote monitoring, telephone, email contact, in-office visits, and on-site monitoring are also to be expected throughout the life cycle of the project. Grantee responsibilities, and then specifically to your subcontractors, you must notify the state of the identity of all subcontractors that are going to be working on the project. It is your responsibility, the grantee's responsibility, to ensure that subcontractors are not suspended, debarred, or in good standing. And grantees must include all federal terms and conditions on all contracts between grantees and subcontractors, which will include certifications and compliances, affidavits, submission of documents, certifying grantee as an eligible applicant, and that the information has been provided is true and accurate. So any information provided from a subcontractor, it is the grantee's responsibility to vet that information out and make sure that it is true and accurate. Here we also come to talk about the certification of affordability, also known as the ACP. We all know that the ACP program is probably going to expire soon. That does not relieve the grantee from the obligation to provide a low-cost plan at the rates committed in the grant application. You are required to provide a low-cost plan. That low-cost plan needs to be maintained regardless of the ACP standard, whether it expires or not. Also, we talk about the Colorado False Claims Act, also known as the CFCA. The CFCA is a robust anti-fraud statute designed to ensure that public funds are used for their intended purposes. Taxpayers' dollars, got to make sure that they're used appropriately and in the right place. Applies to advanced CPO, all advanced CPO broadband projects. It allows civil cases to be brought to the state against a grantee, among other things, misrepresenting progress or finances in the performance of a publicly funded project. Please do not make false claims, whether small or big. Be transparent and be aware of any consequences to any misrepresentation on any information reported to the state or to your OIT grant manager. Please be proactive and contact your OIT grant manager for any assistance or clarification. That's what we're here for. We're here to assist you and make sure that the projects stay on track and to deliver broadband service to the state of Colorado and make sure that all funds are appropriate in the right place. You all have been notified of your assigned OIT grant manager. Myself, Michael, and Jonas are here to help you and assist you in any way, shape that you need. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. We did have a question pop up in the chat from David a little bit ago when you were talking about matching funds. And I'm going to read it out loud. And again, David, feel free to hop on and elaborate if you need to. But does that mean, so matching funds, I believe is what this is in reference to. Does that mean reimbursements can be submitted at any time rather than only on the quarterly reports?
Yeah.
I guess Michael or Dave or Ollie,
Yeah.
either of you take that.
David, I would say that everything we've put in the presentation today is the minimum requirement we expect. So in other words, we would not want you to go past a quarter before you ask for reimbursement, because we want to try to keep track of that as close as we can. But I would say it's between Ali and me and you. We could negotiate if it's monthly or quarterly. I don't think we would want to see it weekly though, if that's what you're asking for.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just curious, like we're looking to buy network equipment or something that's going to be a huge expense. And if we need to structure those, so we buy them at the very end of the quarter, or if we can buy them kind of anywhere and then submit them. It's really the big ones. And do we need to wait till the end of the quarter to not be holding them out? Okay.
No, you definitely just coordinate with us and we'll guide you through it and we'll make it as efficient as possible for everybody.
Right.
And your second question there, I'm seeing it now, Lauren, so thank you. Conditional lien waivers are presumably only for construction work, not materials. Absolutely correct. Conditional lien waivers is specifically for construction. Most of the time, if there was a conditional lien waiver on material, I would never have seen one in the past. But
Okay.
if it happens, we don't have that covered right now, David.
Okay. So I guess if we're using the same contractor for multiple quarters, multiple reimbursement, can we just submit the same lien waiver, or does it need to be updated and specifically say for this invoice or this amount of work?
I would say it needs to be updated specific for that work and that amount, please, so that we have a direct link. And if we ever get audited, we have a direct link between the two.
Okay. I had a couple other small questions if we have time.
Come on with them.
All right. So the network outage notification, specifically like if we're working and we cut something, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with CenturyLink has a problem locating their lines, and we routinely cut them when they're unmarked. Is that we need to contact you guys, even if it's like just a single homeowner or an area, or kind of where's the line for that, I guess?
I would say if you cut someone else's line, let us know, because we're probably going to get a phone call from the governor's office down.
Okay. All right. So just a quick, hey, on this road, we put an unmarked. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
The ACP only the ACP portion is expiring. I know that we and some others put in packages that were only for the ACP eligible people. And if the ACP is no longer a thing, what process should we use for vetting if somebody actually would have qualified for that or not?
Yeah, I mean, you are also what we're trying to do is make a separation between ACP and the low cost option. So as an ISP, you're also requested to have a low cost option available for residents, and how it gets incorporated or not incorporated with the ACP is a different story. But having the ACP program expiring, what we're trying to say, does not relieve you from providing the low cost option.
Okay, yeah, I think we had like a $40 or $45 low cost option, and we had one that was 30 specific for anybody who's qualified for the ACP. So you're saying that technically the one that was for that $30 for ACP eligible, technically we don't have to offer that because we can't verify. It's just our next lowest one that we put on there? Or do you have some recommendation for how we could say this person would have qualified for the ACP, so we're going to offer them this $30 special package?
I would say let's take that question and we will get back to you, David. but I would say that it's not intended to replace, we don't want to not accept ACP because, you know, it may continue
Sure.
and there may be an application or not application, there may be a program that replaces that. We definitely would want that to take preference.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking there's probably a few people that'll qualify for the ACP.
Yeah.
It gets expired, there's not an immediate replacement. I don't know if I should ask people, hey, can you show me that you guys are subsidized, some qualification that normally the FCC would have asked for and
Yeah.
honor that, or just something I was thinking about.
Yeah. No, you know, we would prefer, you know, the lowest cost option to be available and subsidies to be available. But, you know, we're working through some different avenues right now. And I think they're worried about shutting down the government more than they are ACP at this time.
Sure, hopefully they extend that or something new comes out.
Yes.
And I guess I have my last question here. So there's the 24-month timeline. There's at least one of these projects that we think that the main line can be constructed and spliced and online, you know, call it 12 months, but we don't want to do a full closeout because part of those will consider drops and it may be month 23 where somebody does a drop. Would you recommend, like, can we do most of the closeout or does it need to wait till month 24? Because technically we would still be submitting reimbursements for the last few drops that were done.
I would say you do the closeout when you're done with any reimbursement requests. But again, you know, talk to one of us, talk to your grant program manager, and we'll see what we can work out and make sure that we cover all the bases.
Okay.
David, when you say drops, you're meaning like you mean when somebody requests service, and is that what you're referencing to?
Yes, exactly. Like if 100% the main line's done, it's all spliced, the MSTs are installed. We don't want to close it at 12 months because part of the funding is also used for drops and we're still going to be marketing, but it may be month 23 of 24 where we finally get this guy to sign up and we would want to be able to expense part of his installation costs as per our budget. So I don't want to close out too early and then miss out on the opportunity to sign up more customers and have their install subsidized, but also don't want everyone to wait till month 24 to say, we're done now. And then you guys have to
Yes.
go through and do all the closeout at once.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. And
Well,
and at the end of the day, I mean, what's one drop between friends, David?
not a lot. Hopefully we can really get these people to sign up, but some of those old guys, it takes time.
Understood.
Yeah, I would probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'd probably say that there's probably going to be a lot of projects that you're going to have some lateral drops and stuff that are still remaining even after closeout because they just haven't said yes yet.
Oh yeah, and I guess I assume if they call in month 25, we're paying for that drop ourselves, which is fine. We'll absolutely do that, but we're trying to offer the best install price because we're getting some help with it. So I just want to make sure that it's eligible to everyone, but also not gonna give you guys all the closeout at one time.
Yeah, maybe include it in your marketing plan. The sooner that you sign up, the better rates.
Oh, we are. We got a whole. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to try to do. So I'm going to tell them that it's not going to be an option, but I'm a softie. Sometimes we would call and need service, or somebody just moves in. With multiple grants, are you expecting it to have the same coordinator, or do you think there'll be different coordinators per grant?
We've already kind of divided that up, and if you have multiple grants, you have one coordinator for the grant for all your grants. We've done it based off of geographic region and contact, who we've had contact with prior to, and or the company itself that applied for the grants.
So I will be your grant manager for all of your grants, CPF grants, David.
Oh, awesome! Then I already know you, and I know they'll be getting along. So sounds perfect.
Wait a minute, I think we need to change that one, Jonas. He doesn't know me as well.
Well, if it's anyone on this call, you guys all seem reasonable in all of our conversations, so I'm not super concerned there.
I'll go on vacation and Mike will cover for me, so no big deal.
I didn't know vacations were allowed. I'm going to try to book one of those.
They are allowed. Yep, that's why Jonas is here. He approves them.
No, Mike and Ollie, no more vacations for the next like 3 years for you two. Sorry.
3 years.
You
2
see
years.
that?
Okay, I guess that's, yeah, 2, okay. Okay, other questions? We do have about 15 more minutes, so there is time. If anybody else has anything.
I guess as far as reimbursable cost, if we're looking at starting some of the surveying and engineering work, is that acceptable or should we shoot off an email?
Yeah, if you want to start some pre-construction activities prior to the agreement signature date, contact your administrator, ask for approval to do so. That way, we can't guarantee that all the costs can be reimbursable, but you've covered your bases by asking for permission or asking for authority to do so, not permission.
Okay, yeah. So some of the permitting requirements are lengthy, especially with CDOT. So
Mhm.
we want to hit the ground running on that.
Some of them are going to be, David, are going to be, clear cut permitting, design, engineering. Those are easier to determine, different than, material and electronics and what have you that been acquired prior. That's a little bit, requires a little bit more in-depth looking at, but permitting and engineering and all that good stuff, but it's reasonable.
Okay, yeah, that's all we're talking about. I just want to make sure that we can have a permit on day one and keep working. And I remember reading something in the application about needing to submit engineering for reimbursements and having to have an engineered plan. Am I overlapping my grant stuff? I was thinking that there was a requirement to submit engineering specs to you guys before reimbursements would be approved. Does that sound familiar?
You're talking about like as-built?
I don't believe it said as-built. So I was thinking I had to have an engineer pre-draft some pseudo plan and profile to give a copy to you guys before any reimbursements were allowed.
It's before construction would be, you'd get a notice to proceed. Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's construction notice to proceed.
Yes.
Assuming back to kind of a KMZ with placement of everything, that will be
Mhm.
sufficient. It doesn't need to be like a professional engineer stamp or anything special.
Well, I mean, before you start any construction, you're going to need to have a permit. And in order for you to have a permit, you're going to need to have professional engineering done.
Depends on which county. A lot of these counties do not require a PE stamp.
Then a design and a letter that says that they don't require that would suffice.
Okay, perfect.
And then we would issue a notice to proceed based on engineering plans. But also you're going to need a permit, regardless if it was stamped or not. You'd need a permit, correct?
Correct. And a lot of these, honestly, for permitting, they want a JPEG or a PDF of the routes and their spreadsheet that says the footage. Some of them require a full plan and profile on potholing and depths, but most of the ones we're working in are very happy to have construction happening out in the sticks. So they don't make us jump through as many hoops as Douglas County or Colorado Springs, for example.
Yeah, so we're not going to require anything more than the municipality requires. However, if it's a full-blown engineering PE stamped approved, that's fine, great. We'll review that and issue a notice to proceed. If they don't require that, please submit your plan with a letter from that municipality that says that they don't require that. And put them together and we'll look at it and we'll go from there.
Sounds
Yeah.
perfect.
And David, I commit to you that we'll go back and look at the CPF guidelines and guidance to make sure we're not misstating that. Because I do remember what you're saying now about something about engineering stamped diagrams. I just don't remember if it's CPF, BEAD, which program it was. I gotta go back and reacquaint myself with it. Okay.
Sounds perfect. Yeah, I just trying to make a few notes of this.
Yeah.
So that when we got to this point, I knew what was going on.
But the key word here is approved permits.
Okay. Got it. Can do.
And I'll add another key phrase: work with your coordinator. We will try to make your life easy, and you will make our life easier.
Sounds good to us.
Yes. Any other questions? I'm going to jump ahead of Lauren because she's going to close out the call. But if you have any questions, you don't have to wait for another call. You don't have to, um, you know, officially do an official, just send us an email, give us a drop off call, any way you want to communicate with us. We'll try to answer your questions as efficiently as possible.
Thanks, Mike. I'm actually going to let Jonas close us out.
Oh.
So
No, we can't let him now. He didn't take any slides.
No, I just wanted to first say thank you to all of our participants for showing up this afternoon. We realize it's not the most interesting information, but it is very important and it's required. So thank you for taking the time. And second, I want to say congratulations. It's a lot of work to get this far through the grant process. And we really appreciate everyone's patience while we work through this together. We know there's a lot of hurry up and waiting for more information. And we just want to say thank you for your patience and thank you for your contribution to helping us all get this much closer to bridging the digital divide. And we're excited to be working with all of you. So next steps, let's get those grant agreements executed and start doing some construction. So thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon. We'll be in touch.
Before you go, before everybody goes, we've got late breaking news here. We did a quick search and David, you were right. On page 25 of the advanced CPF guidelines, there is a section of a paragraph that says awardees must submit engineered designs for awarded projects prior to reimbursements.
thanks, Michael.
Yes.
So does that mean we should, what, I guess, so then my question was really, what is an engineered design? If we've got in our software, and we've got what side of the road and where the handholds are going to be, and what the fiber count and the conduit, is that good? Or do I need to just kick it off the engineering firm and incur cost on that?
No, we need to know as much detail as we can so that when it comes down to an audit, we can point to and explain everything that you did and everything that we approved, and no one will get left in the wind there. And Allie Terry is probably going to cover it much better than I do because she's a compliance officer here, David. So I'll let her have it now.
Really quickly, so the design that you submit needs to be prepared under a PE, or you can submit the credentials of your engineer with a design. If your project is $1 million or less, that there's the possibility for it to be waived.
Okay, so likely needs to be a PE. I mean, all my guys do fiber designs all day and night, but I'm not sure what credentials like put on paper. Just years of experience.
That's
Yeah,
credentials.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to even again, you know, sort of as you're thinking about these compliance requirements, once you see something like that, you're always welcome to send something in, right? So get a resume from one of your guys, have them write something up, send it over to us, and we can see whether or not it's it feels like it meets the criteria before you go to the expense of hiring a PE.
Sounds fair. And I believe it's that you can do it kind of in phases. So phase one, we have plans for, we could submit reimbursements for phase one. Phase two, we get plans before. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, if that's the way you've divided your construction up into phases, then yes.
You'll want to communicate that to Mike and
Exactly. I was just about to say that, Allie. The key is communications, right? We communicate with you, you communicate with us, we'll make it better for everybody.
Sounds reasonable.
Yes. David, I'm glad you said it sounds reasonable. I thought I was being unreasonable. Thanks a lot, David.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for answering all our questions.
Oh. Thank you. And there are 2 more of these calls. You're only required to attend one of them, but if you think of more questions or want to see the presentation again, you're welcome to join any of the others too. So, and we'll send out the recording too.
And we'll try to make it interesting if you're attending it for the second time. We'll call on you.
I'll probably just shoot you guys an email if I think of anything else, since
All
that's
right.
be the correct way to proceed.
If you attend more than 2, then you have to share, you contribute to presenting on the third one.
All right, great. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.